All right. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Labor Day to all of those out there who celebrated. Hope you had a good time with your family, friends, an enjoyable time, because now we're going to be discussing something that's not so enjoyable. Now that it's the start of the year, this is, like when everything starts to get fun. This is the start of football. This is the end of baseball. Basketball starts to ramp up. This is the best time, in my opinion, to be a sports fan. So exciting times ahead if you're not a New York Yankees fan. And I'm Bryce Gelman. And today going to be discussing, by extent, the Yankees' decision to not bring up Jasson Dominguez when the roster is expanded on September 1st, but also Aaron Boone's response to all this. The criticism from the media, the criticism from the fans, the criticism from a lot of people around baseball who just questioned the urgency to win from the Yankees. He spoke on that last night. He spoke on that today on the Talking Yanks podcast. So there are a few things that we have to cover in terms of Boone's comments. I'm going to first start off by giving my own opinion on the Yankees' idiotic, in my own words, decision to not call up Jasson Dominguez. Someone who, yes, understood, and let me get this out of the way, this part about it. Jasson Dominguez came back from Tommy John in June. He raked. He did extremely well. On June 30th, he goes down with an oblique injury. So he misses about a month and a half of action. A little bit less. He came back. He recovered unbelievably fast from that injury. Came back and, yes, has not been hitting the cover off the ball. His stats kind of tanked in AAA, but he's working them back up. And it was just assumed on September 1st, when the rosters expand, that Jasson Dominguez would be one of those names brought up so he could face major league hitting in the stretch run before the MLB postseason. And you want to know who they called up instead? Duke Ellis. Duke Ellis. Of course, the great Duke Ellis. A guy the Yankees picked up who was on the White Sox earlier this year. He's rarely seen Major League Baseball action. He's got a 664 career OPS in the minor leagues, and he's hitting 238. That's the guy the Yankees brought up instead of Jasson Dominguez. And the reason why they brought him up, and I'd be remiss to not mention this, the Yankees' reasoning behind bringing up Duke Ellis, is Duke Ellis is a threat on the base paths. He's got, I think, like 40-plus stolen bases on the year. He's a speedster. He's a speed demon, which undeniably the Yankees so desperately need on this team. But it's also like at the same time, they're completely ignoring the fact that Jasson Dominguez is also really good on the base pass, that Jasson Dominguez has 11 stolen bases in the minor leagues in the month of August. And the fact that Jasson Dominguez, considering everything you hear from the Yankees brass, is such a promising young talent. This guy has it all. He's a 5-tool star. If you remember, the Yankees gave up $5.1 million of their $5.4 million in international signing bonus money to sign him in July of 2019. This guy is the second coming of Mickey Mantle. He's got traces of Bo Jackson, people have said. And yet the Yankees still refuse to call the guy up because it makes too much sense. For the New York Yankees, they are incapable of making the obvious decision. Whenever it is as clear as day that one simple decision is the right one to make, the Yankees go out and do it the complete opposite way, expecting themselves to be right. How many times we've talked about the definition of insanity here when it comes to the New York Yankees? It's doing something repeatedly over and over again and expecting different results. Well, the Yankees just did that again with Jasson Dominguez here. Not calling him up, not getting a guy who so obviously will be on the postseason roster as many reps in the majors as possible. Why not? It just makes too much sense. That's why. There's no other explanation because there's no service time manipulation in this. There's none. There's no like loopholes that the Yankees are trying to fight through to try to exploit in order to make sure that Jasson Dominguez has as many years of arbitration as they want him to have. That is not the case. So, Bryce, you may ask, why? Why do this? Well, we have some comments, some thoughtful and thought-provoking comments from the Yankees manager, Aaron Boone. This is what he said last night. He said it's still very much in play. Just because it didn't happen on September 1st doesn't mean it won't at some point. The reality is he's starting to play some really good baseball. Here we feel in the last 2 to 3 weeks, yada, yada, yada. He had racked up a ton of at-bats this year, and he struggled off the oblique injury. That's all stuff that I've mentioned here. It's objectively true. I understand. But they think that this is a tough decision. The first part of the comment. That involves some tough decisions there for a guy who hasn't played a ton yet, even at the AAA level, let alone a week in the big leagues last year. Fine, he hasn't gotten a lot of at-bats at AAA. When a guy excels at the major league level a year before, let's just say, in this case, this is the example that we're using. When a guy excels, he comes up for 9 games, he demolishes the Astros. If you remember the home run on the first pitch he sees from Justin Verlander, a surefire Hall of Famer, surefire baseball Hall of Famer. He's making the Hall of Fame, right? Jasson Dominguez comes up, hits a nuke. I wouldn't say a nuke. It barely got out. Against Justin Verlander in his first game against the Astros, a team that the Yankees have struggled so desperately to beat in the past. So not only did he show his competence at the major league level, I understand it wasn't as big of a sample size as you'd like. He showed that he is able to perform against the team in which it will matter the most. We're not idiots. We understand the likelihood the Yankees will face up against the Astros again, whether it be this year, next year, the year after that. The Astros are inevitable. They will continue to be exactly where the Yankees don't want them to be in a potential ALCS matchup. Jasson Dominguez, if the Yankees think so highly of him, and he's such a lock to be on the postseason roster, which I think Yankees fans would have an absolute panic attack, and they'd try to burn down Yankee Stadium if this weren't the case, then why don't you try to get him as many reps at the major league level as possible? He's had a month plus after the oblique injury at AAA. And yes, he's finally starting to put it together. You could put it together at the AAA level, get up to the major leagues, and have absolutely zero idea what you're doing at the plate. The only way to be good in the major leagues is to see major league pitching. And yet they refuse to call Jasson Dominguez up. And still Aaron Boone says there's no space for Jasson Dominguez. No space. But there's space for Duke Ellis. Ladies and gentlemen, the legendary Duke Ellis, he's got to be on the team. For all those pinch running situations that we deal with on a game-by-game basis. Not for the guy to come in and replace the absolute dumpster fire that is Alex Verdugo. I almost said Anthony Rizzo. He's back. Hopefully he's back for good. Knock on wood. How unbelievable would that be? Alex Verdugo is one of the worst players in Major League Baseball. He has a 779 WRC plus, which ranks second to last among all left fielders in Major League Baseball. The indignance from this Yankees organization is just on another level, ladies and gentlemen. It's disgusting. This is not the first time we've seen the Yankees do this. Holding on to whatever hope there was that a veteran player that they traded for, that they gave up young assets for, was going to transform magically into their old selves, is a tired move that they have made time after time. Just look at 2022 and 2023 with the absolute corpse, literally, That was Josh Donaldson. The man retired. He gave it a run with, what was it? It might have been the White Sox that he was on last year. Don't quote me on that. He decided to try to give it one last run, one last go around. And you want to know what happened? He hung up the cleats. Even he knew it was time to do so. Every Yankee fan knew it was time for that. Every Yankee fan understood that guy had absolutely nothing left to give in the tank. Do you want to know who didn't? Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone. Two guys that we somehow trust to bring this team back to its old glory days. To actually put them in a position to win a World Series for the first time in 15 years. And I'm tired of getting into these stupid, petty arguments with my friends about this. About them trusting, for whatever reason, Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman to do exactly what we have entrusted them to do. Boone since 2017, Cashman, they could say until, since 2010. I don't understand. I don't get it. I cannot fathom any human being in their right mind having any trust in this organization to make the right decision. If everything comes together, it will not be because the front office made the necessary moves for that to happen. It will be due to the sheer will and determination of the players on this team. I know that's somewhat of a double standard to blame the front office when the players don't perform and then to not give them credit when the players actually do perform. But what makes you believe that the players they have continued to trot out over the past couple of years, the same types of players, Verdugo, Donaldson, there are other names out there, to trust them to go out and actually turn back the clock, to put together solid performances at the plate, to actually have an OPS over 700 for once. What a crazy ask. Jasson Dominguez needs to be up on the active roster yesterday. He should have been up September 1st. But no, they had to bring up Duke Ellis. What a joke. I try not to sit here and lose my absolute mind every week about this organization. And yes, they had a really solid performance last night against the Texas Rangers. It seemed like everyone in the lineup was hitting. Rizzo just comes back, hits for a double, gets a few RBIs, Stanton hits a nuke. All is well, right? There is no team, and by extension, the fans too, and their reaction to it, that is more inconsistent and bipolar than the New York Yankees. They had some of the best games that we've seen from them, this organization. Some of the best individual performances that we've seen in baseball history in the month of August. And they went 14-2. 14-2. They're only a half game ahead of the Baltimore Orioles, who just have completely dropped the ball on this unbelievable opportunity to put the Yankees in the dust. The Orioles are not much better this year. It has been said plenty of times by the people who cover the sport that this is as wide open as it has been in recent memory. The Dodgers have been really good. And you can trust them when push comes to shove because those guys perform, not all of them when it matters the most. But you add Shohei Ohtani to a team that has just struggled to get through the finish line since 2020, the Mickey Mouse World Series. And inevitably, that team catapults itself into World Series conversations. So I get if you want to say the Dodgers, but other than that, who else is there? The Yankees have as good of an opportunity as they have had since 2017, being up 3-2 in Game 6 and then in Game 7, to at least make a World Series, to at least get there, to at least give the fans some hope that it can happen in the future. Because until they make the World Series, I have zero hope in this organization. Starting with Hal Steinbrenner. He's the one at the end of the day who calls the shots. And who is going to be calling the shots? So in turn, by default, he's the one calling the shots. And he has repeatedly, time and time again, entrusted Brian Cashman and in turn, trusted Aaron Boone to lead this organization to where everyone thinks they could be. And yet you have a lot of people like myself with just zero hope in that end result actually happening. And it's because of decisions like this. Decisions that seem so easy. Like even my 7-year-old cousin, who's a massive Yankees fan, he could have made that decision and it would have turned out to be the right one. The Yankees, for whatever reason, think they are smarter than the media, than the fans, than the 29 other teams in Major League Baseball. They have this complex about them, that they're so high and mighty, that they know what they're doing, and you don't. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. You've got this idiotic defense from Aaron Boone as to why they didn't bring up Jasson Dominguez. And quite frankly, the reasoning is not good enough. The idea that there's not enough space, but there's enough space for Duke Ellis. Duke Ellis. Jasson Dominguez is also able to steal bases. He's not a one-dimensional player like Duke Ellis is. A guy with a sub 650 OPS or 664 OPS in his minor league baseball career. That's the guy that's blocking Jasson Dominguez. The guy that you signed for $5.1 million in 2019. The guy that you yourself, the Yankees organization, has compared to Mickey Mantle. And some of the greatest players to ever play the game of baseball. That's the guy who's not getting called up because Duke Ellis has to be there. And there's no service time manipulation involved in any of this, realistically. There's no BS loophole that the Yankees are exploiting in order to not have to pay Jasson Dominguez sooner than they already have to. None of that is at play. The Yankees are simply doing what they do best. Make extremely simple decisions as tough and difficult as possible. It is never easy with this organization. In a year that is as wide open as this year, why are your best players not on the active roster? I don't want to hear Jasson Dominguez needs more time at AAA. Yeah, he needs more time hitting AAA pitchers just so he could come up and then adjust to Major League pitchers? How does that make sense? I understand the part of it where he came back from an oblique injury and was struggling at the plate. The second he started to even somewhat put it together, he should have been on the active roster. And Aaron Boone says there's a chance that it'll happen. Just because it didn't happen September 1st doesn't mean it won't happen in the coming days. So let's see it. Because I, for one, would like first off, the Yankees to have its best possible roster, best possible lineup. Second off, I'd like to see Jasson Dominguez, the 21-year-old, get more reps at the plate against Major League pitching. He's played in 9 games in the majors. 8 last year, 1 this year in the Little League game. Not good enough. Not enough. The Yankees want to use he hasn't seen enough pitching at the AAA level as the reason. Why does that not apply the same to Major League pitching? Like, he's got to prove himself anymore in the minors in order for him to yet again get called up to the majors. He already earned it last year, getting called up when the rosters expanded. He was a September 1st call-up. And he dismantled the Astros. And Justin Verlander, showing why and how he could be a factor in a potential playoff series against the Astros when no one else has. How many guys in the last 5, 6 years, 7 years, since the Yankees-Astros rivalry really started, have performed when it's mattered the most against them, specifically on the road at Minute Maid Park? I can't give you anyone. Maybe Giancarlo Stanton. Giancarlo Stanton is Giancarlo Stanton in the playoffs against every other team besides the Astros. You certainly can't say the name Aaron Judge. He does not fit the mold. It is as disappointing as anything else in this world. For me, and I'm sure a lot of other Yankees fans, how some of those Yankees fans could continue to place their trust in Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone is absolutely beyond me. I'm fed up. I've had enough. There are going to be plenty more times when I've said that, when I'll say that. It just continues to happen. Again, the bipolarness of the organization and of its fans are second to none. They're incomparable to any other organization and its fans in sports. But for good reason. That's what happens when you have high expectations. That's what happens when you have 27 World Series banners hanging in your stadium. Be better. Do better. Make the simple decision. Stop trying to overthink every possible potential decision and stop with this mindset that you're better than everyone else. That you're better than the fans, that you're better than the media, that you're better than the 29 other teams in Major League Baseball. Enough is enough. Make it make sense. Make the right decision. That's all we're asking. And stop playing Alex Verdugo, please and thank you. That'll do it for today's live stream. I'm Bryce Gelman. Thank you to the 8 people who joined this. This was good stuff. I rarely say that about anything I do. But if you missed it, if you're just joining now, rewind to the start, watch it over. I promise you, you will not regret it. There's a lot of good stuff in here. Some good arguments. Some terrible arguments discussed stemming from Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman. 2 peas in a pod. Talk to you all later this week. Giants, baby. Let's go. One giant step. That preview episode for Giants Vikings will drop somewhere later this week from Sean and I, wherever you get your podcast. Also, I'll do probably something of my own on the Giants, maybe a video or two, and then also maybe talk about the Knicks because we haven't in a while. So I'm Bryce Gelman. Talk to you all later this week. Have a good one.